This is an SM Media production.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the Celtic Report, the SM Media exclusive Celtic podcast. I'm Scott McPike. It's a pleasure to be your host as always. I'm delighted to welcome on this week's episode Marc Cairney. Marc, it's very good to have you on. I've been wanting to get you on for a while, but I don't think you probably picked the right night to be on.
I think I picked probably the best night to be on. I think I've got probably quite strong views on Celtic just now and in general. So, Scott, it's probably the best time to get somebody who's going to spark opinion on to give their wacky views anyway. In fact, it's good to be on, mate. It's been a long time coming, as you say.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, mate. Obviously, it's going to be an interesting show. It's very rare we talk about a Celtic Cup defeat, but we are going to talk about it. Let's just get straight into it because I don't think there's much in the way of kind of news that's been happening. We'll get into kind of sign and chat later on, but in terms of the game, I think there's enough to pack a 45-minute show, no bother with what happened today. Team news, I think barring Carter Vickers and maybe obviously Hatate couldn't play. That was the strongest team Celtic could put out today.
Yeah, I was expecting some changes. I was expecting to see Yang start because
Yeah,
he has impressed me the minutes he's been getting. He's impressed me. Holmes impressed me. So I was expecting to see Holm come in with Yang and a debut for Lager Bielka. And then I think the centre-back pairing kind of picked itself with the injury of Welsh and Cameron Carter-Vickers. So no real surprises, although a bit disappointment with the exclusion of Yang, to be honest.
yeah. I mean, I thought Lager Bielka would start. I thought, in terms of the defence, I thought, with the exception of Taylor, who we'll maybe get into later on, I thought they did fine. But I think it's a tough game I think it's a tough game to make your debut in. But I thought Lager Bielka did pretty well. Start with the first half again. As we've kind of spoke about the League Cup over, kind of done a show and spoke about the League Cup over the weekend. First halves have not really been a thing. There's been nothing really major happening, and this was another game. Kilmarnock with a better side first half. They had more chances. The boy in Dava I thought was pretty good. He had a couple of good chances, and McGuinness came close. Obviously, Celtic didn't have any shots on target the whole game, which I never ever thought would happen in terms of this team. But first half, Kilmarnock with a better side.
I thought so too, and I did see the same stat you've just read, that there was no shots on target, but I seen Matt O'Reilly had a shot on target that just went into the keeper's hands, and
Yeah,
other than that, there was absolutely nothing. The first half was, I can't think of one passage I played in the first half that I was impressed with.
no.
I know Kyogo was one of the back post. Kyogo, I think, was just stretching just too far, but there was nothing in that at all, and I don't really know what the tactic was in the first half, because it was almost like we were asking Kilmarnock to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then we would try and find an avenue of playing the long ball. I think long ball should be an option, but I don't think it should be the option for a team like Celtic playing this league. And what struck me in the first half was just how little ideas we had, and it wasn't just about personnel. I think the performance today, especially in the first half, came from the sidelines, and I'm Brendan Rodgers' biggest cheerleader. I'll not deny that, but I think today was probably a result that he manufactured.
We will obviously talk about Rodgers a lot in the next wee while because I think it is obviously something we need to get into. But I thought first half, I do think the problem with Kilmarnock is we've seen over the years, but particularly Derek McInnes' side, we know what they're going to do. We know they're going to pack the boxes. We know Kilmarnock right now. We've seen so far this season, they've got a bit of positivity about them. They've got players who can make an impact, and I don't think the midfield did their best day. And I thought at times I thought McGuinness was really good for Kilmarnock. I thought Kilmarnock were a lot more positive as we've seen in recent years.
I think Kilmarnock have actually surprised a few people this season, because I think this is what happens when you have a manager going into their third and fourth season at a club. In Scotland, the reason why I think a lot of teams can't build is because clubs can't afford to give any more than 2-year contracts, and also managers are chopped and changed. Now, this is McKenzie's third season, maybe his fourth season at Kilmarnock. That brings a momentum. That brings a man knowing his team inside out, knows his capabilities, but it also gives him like a pathway to just creating a team that's hard to beat. I mean, the Rangers result was no accident. They then went to Tynecastle the following week, a place that we all know is difficult to go to, and didn't lose a goal. So it just shows you there's more to this team than just rough around the edges, hard-working men. This is a team set up by a manager that I've got a lot of time for when I look beyond the fact he's an ex-Rangers player. The guy has done well wherever he's went. I mean, St Johnstone fans will tell you how good he did for them, and I think Kilmarnock will do well to keep him for as long as they can, because this team weren't just hammer throwers today. This was a team that was set up and set up well.
59th minute, Kilmarnock take the lead now. There's been a bit of, I don't get why Greg Taylor is off the park. We'll get into that in a second, but it's a good cross from Armstrong. Celtic don't deal with it. Watkins is there at the back post and Kilmarnock take the lead. Now, I wasn't necessarily surprised that Kilmarnock went in front, because I could sort of see that the game was maybe going in that direction, but it's a really poor goal to concede from a Celtic perspective. But it's not one of those where I would say there's one player particularly to blame, but the cross should be dealt with.
It was a bit like Keystone Cops. I don't think anybody was to blame as such individually, but looked to me like nobody knew where they're supposed to be. And if you look at the replay, you're seeing players, and I think they're all looking at each other as if to say who should be picking him up, who's standing where, who's standing there. And it reminded you of the kind of goal we'd lose during Lennon's COVID season.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the full match had COVID season written all over it. And I wasn't surprised when they lost the goal either. I thought the big guy Vassell played well the full match. I thought he that just shows you what happens when you've got physicality in your team, where you can bully a player the full match, and sometimes you don't recover from that. Certain players can lose battles, not just by their ability, but if you've got a player that's dominating you for 90 minutes, it's very rarely you recover for that. You know what I mean? And I think Celtic, man on man, the full match, I think the Kilmarnock players will probably have an easy night's sleep tonight, because I don't think anybody got a hard time after their opposition player at all from Kilmarnock's point of view.
Obviously, after that, Celtic, the kind of changes were kind of mooted. Obviously, Turnbull come on and then Yang come on. Yang was getting involved. Turnbull, I don't think, had much of an impact, but it kind of shows you as well with Yang, yes, it's the strongest front three Celtic could have put out that started, but Yang did offer something different. I don't think Abada had his best day. Maeda and Kyogo were obviously trying to get stuff going, but it was just Yang did bring something on, and you're going to see that over the course of the season. I don't think he's going to be a player that starts all the time, but he's certainly a player who can make an impact.
I think Yang looks to me like he's the only player so far we've got that can fulfil that kind of Jota kind of role, where he can get the ball, he's got the trick, but he can also just get his head up and just run towards goal. And we need that. We're too passive at the moment. We seem to have too many players that are waiting for somebody else to do magic. This guy looks to me like he can just do a bit of magic himself. Carl McGregor, who we might speak about, he spent the full match on the edge of the match. I mean, we were chasing a goal in the 93rd minute, and he's sitting 30 yards from his own goal. And I thought that match was just another game where Carl McGregor's been proven to be ineffective in the number 6 role. He's got to be further up the park. He's a number 8 now. We all know that. And if today was an eye opener for some fans, I think if there's any post-mortem done within the Celtic camp, I think a lot of them will be pointing fingers towards themselves, because not one person in that team, even the subs that come on, Yang did look a bit lively, so did Haksabanovic, but I find the likes of Turnbull, we can be starting matches with Turnbull and O'Reilly as first choices. Scott, last season we seen Turnbull and O'Reilly in second, third choice, sometimes third and fourth choice players, and we've seen this season that they've been starting together. And a team that's behaving so slowly like Celtic are just now, we can't have two players who need 3 touches of the ball. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. We need to be more concise and more clinical in our passing.
The one thing with that is that we've seen O'Reilly so far this season, and he's been really good. The first 2 games he's been terrific, but today he wasn't getting involved. Or you could put, I think Holmes obviously a player who's going to be good in the ball and he's aggressive, but I think today it just didn't work. It's that midfield. Now that is a concern because if Hattati's going to be out, I would say you probably start your best three midfielders. And right now I would say McGregor, Holman, O'Reilly as your best three midfielders. But when they might, I know it's one game and it's a difficult day and you're kind of thinking a lot, but when the midfield three don't connect like that, it's a massive worry.
Well, I think we've got big games coming up. I mean, I think the first derby match is pivotal towards any season, and the Champions League opening games are going to be pivotal until towards how we progress in that tournament. And when you look so disjointed in a key area of the park, I think that's a worry, because any player that's going to be coming in just now, they're only going to be up to speed. You know, I dare say any player we've got in who's going to improve the starting 11 is probably going to be from a club where they're not getting a lot of game time. Maybe somebody who's maybe fell out of favour in a bigger league, and that doesn't bode well for Celtic. You know, I think we should be clearly getting Hattati back as soon as possible, but there's more to Celtic's disjointed feel about the midfield and team selection. I think we've got players playing in the wrong roles, i.e. McGregor. I think Hattati as well. We've seen Hattati. He's dropping so deep to get the ball and get involved in the play when he should be sitting 30, 40, 50 yards maximum from a position and facing goal at all time. And I'm not entirely sure we get the best out of Kyogo, Hattati when they're dropping so deep. I just don't understand it. Midfield looks particularly disjointed for me, but defence, 4 goals in 3 matches, I think there's reasons for that. There's not been 3 matches yet. Sorry, we've kept the same back 4, so that's disjointed itself. But the worrying thing is people within that back 4 aren't doing their job properly at certain times in the match, and there's a lot to worry about. There's a lot to think about in these first 3 matches. None of it's going to make the season implode, but there's signs there that if we don't fix these problems before we go any further, that things just might start getting a bit haywire for Celtic, especially when we've got to places like Ibrox in the Champions League coming up.
You mentioned obviously the back 4, and I did think the 2 new boys at centre back fine. I thought Lagerbielka, you can see what he brings. Nawrocki, I've been quite impressed with. Ralston, it was struggling a wee bit in terms of kind of coming up. Like I thought the left wing back was pretty good against him. I thought Ralston struggling, but there was times he was getting forward and making an impact.
Yeah,
I worry about how I don't think we spoke a lot in the kind of past episodes about continuity in terms of going from Postecoglou to Rodgers, and to a degree there has been that, but there's also the way Rodgers uses his fullbacks is very different to the way Ange used his, and I don't think that necessarily will help Greg Taylor. Now, I thought today Armstrong was pretty good against him. Greg Taylor hasn't started the season well, and I don't know why, because I've looked at the kind of progression in the past couple of seasons where I've thought, with Bernabei especially coming in, I thought Bernabei's going to take that role. It's only going to matter of time once he gets up to speed, and he hasn't done that. He hasn't broken through yet in terms of being a kind of taking Taylor off the starting berth. But we are hearing talks of left backs coming in, and Taylor just hasn't hit the ground running this season.
I think Taylor has reverted to the Greg Taylor we saw under Lennon, where he was playing the same role as he's playing just now. His first instinct was to pass the ball backwards or play inside. And when you're playing with attacking fullbacks, they've got to be aggressive. And there was actually one point in the first half where the defender, he played the ball to Greg Taylor and the ball went right at the park. And Greg Taylor wasn't expecting the pass because the message from the manager was to play the ball backwards. And I thought that screamed, that's alarm bells for me, that the mantra just knew to play the ball back, wait for mistakes and play over the top or pick the wee pockets, and that isn't Greg Taylor, I'm afraid. Greg Taylor, I think, plays well in the inverted fullback, and I think Ralston's the exact same. Ralston is actually quite a good overlapper. See if you can get somebody who can let Ralston run down that wing. He will give you a good cross, 6, 7 out of 10. Ralston's got a glass ceiling, but see at Celtic, they've all got a glass ceiling. But I think sometimes because he's Scottish, I think that glass ceiling just gets magnified to find the support. I thought today he played actually not too bad. I think him and the two centre backs can have a quite comfortable 6 out of 10. I don't think anybody was excellent, but he played no bad. But Greg Taylor's an issue for me as well, Scott. I'm not entirely sure where we go because Bernabe's not good enough either. And to me, the only solution, if you want to stick to this system, is bringing somebody new. And I don't mean another project. Somebody's got to come in and take that first 11. In fact, there's probably, I think there's 4 positions that I think Celtic need upgraded on the starting 11 right now. And I'm not confident the board's going to fulfil that, mate, to be quite honest with you.
Save that to the end because I want to spend a bit of time in signings because there has been chat over the past couple of days, and I think there's a lot of reasons to kind of think what are Celtic going to do in terms of transfers between now and the end of the window. But forward line, I've been very, very vocal of the dropping Kyogo a bit deeper can only be a good thing. But I think today you saw that the potential of that, because if Celtic are chasing a game, it's okay if you're dropping Kyogo back if you're 2-0 up. And that's why I think with Ange scoring those goals early, getting the fast start that they had, teams in Scotland couldn't deal with it. But now there is a bit of a handbrake at the start. Now, Rodgers is a terrific manager and he's a terrific man manager. We've spoken about that for a long, long time. But dropping Kyogo deeper, when you're in that situation where you're playing against a packed defence, it's very difficult for him. If he's dropping deeper, if your wingers aren't doing very much, what's he dropping deeper for? So that's the worry for me right now. And I think Kyogo's a marvellous player. I've said that a lot. But today there was nothing in terms, like, we're obviously shot. You said O'Reilly shot in target, so there was one, I think, but that is a concern. There was no real. I don't really think the Kilmarnock keeper had very much to do.
No.
I don't think. I thought Kyogo. You still see what Kyogo can bring in terms of. Do you need somebody playing in front of him? If you're going to drop him back and have him playing that kind of deeper role, do you then need somebody to kind of fill that void? Because it's something that's going to need to work, because today's been a massive learning curve.
I think there was too many gaps in the team. There has to be a link up. There has to be a link up between Kyogo and defence. If your midfield aren't pulling their weight, there has to be a somebody who is the go between the defence and Kyogo Furuhashi. That guy is a fantastic football player. He's not just a fantastic striker. His intelligence is amazing. Look at his movement. His wee touches is just different planet. And as you said, if he's doing all the work himself, and he's trying to play the ball wide to find somebody who's going to hopefully give him a bit of service. Who's he giving the service to? A Daizen Maeda who's not going to pick him out a good cross, or an Abada who's scared to take a man on. It just seems to be just so many holes they knew in that team, and you can't have big massive patches of space within the team. There's got to be more link up, and this is what's worrying me in terms of Celtic going forward. It just seems to be that they're waiting for somebody else to do something. They're all waiting for somebody else to do something. And normally you've got Hatate pushing forward, and then you've got McGregor jumping in the wee holes and finding the link up, bringing Maeda into the game, bringing Kyogo into the game. But when you've got Carl McGregor 15 yards behind the play, all Carl McGregor's going to do is mop up the mistakes, regurgitate the ball. You need Carl McGregor in there, being a massive part of Celtic offensively. No doing a Scott Brown job and covering Kieran Tierney. We don't need another Scott Brown in this team. We need somebody who's going to be linking up the play, as I said, being that middleman between Hatate and the strikers, or bringing Maeda in a bit closer, letting Taylor overlap, or letting Taylor go in behind Maeda. And that's what happened. And that's what happened this season for a reason. Is Carl McGregor's been took out of that role. So it's not just about the squad they'll go out in the park. It's about the players we have got in the park playing their right positions. I don't think anybody watching the match would have felt that Carl McGregor is best placed playing that position. My worry is, does Rodgers?
We'll get into. We'll we'll touch a bit on Rodgers because I thought his post-match press conference was very interesting because he seemed to do that kind of thing that he's done in the past. Now, he didn't have many times to do it in the past, obviously, because Celtic were winning these type of games, but it was very, very vocal of, I need more now. That would worry me. But I thought today that one of the big problems was, I thought Maeda in particular, I don't know if you remember a bit in the second half where I think Kilmarnock made a loose pass and Maeda just used it gallons of space to just drive forward and plays this long ball. I can't remember if it was Kyogo or Abad. I don't know if you remember the point. He had so much space to drive into and he just throws it forward and I'm like, what's he doing there? Now, that's a worry. That's a big worry because in that sort of game, now there might be 4 or 5 times that this season where Celtic will have that game where they might have to come from behind to pull a result up, but it's your decision making in those big points. And that today, that was the one where I thought that doesn't fill me with much confidence if that's what he was thinking there. What was he thinking?
I know, and that's the sort of thing we've been getting dished up by this guy since he's signed at Celtic. He's got moments of magic. But he's also got moments where he's frustrating. I'd say there's a lot more days where he's frustrating than he's impressing you. There's the goal at Easter Road and there's the goal at Ibrox. There's other games where he's played really well, Daisen Maeda, but that pass, I mean, that pass was so far the wrong move to make that it made you question what his vision was, because even the ball over the top, Kyogo was going to be getting pushed out wide anyway. And there was no support for Kyogo. Kyogo was all alone, and I thought decision making, as you say, is a big part of football. But can you teach that to a man who's in his 5th, 6th season in professional football? I'm not entirely sure. I think the stark reality is the result today or not. There's players that are playing for Celtic because of legacy who shouldn't be getting starts. Daisen Maeda is one of them. I think Abad is one of them. And in an ideal world, Celtic would have did their business a lot earlier than they have just now. But they're not. So we can only speak about the players that they've got playing the part just now. And I don't know if the decision making was any worse on the park today than what it was off it. Because both are really substandard in my opinion.
Yeah, and the one, I think there's one word to kind of sum up today, and it was toothless. There was nothing there in terms of, and that is the kind of word that I'm leaning on. And we'll get into Rodgers, we'll get into transfers and things like that. We'll get into the pitch as well because Rodgers was very, very vocal on that, and I can see his argument. But it doesn't matter if there's pitches. Celtic should be beating Kilmarnock. It doesn't matter. Celtic should be giving the Kilmarnock goalkeeper a hellish day, William Dennis, and a very quiet day, and that it was toothless. That is the only word for it.
It was. Oh, I'd use the same word on Twitter. Actually, it just lacked imagination, lacked spark, lacked tempo. There was moments in the first half where I wasn't expecting Celtic to play the ball forward at any point. I think if we get a penalty kick in the first half, we would have passed it backwards. That is how negative the first half shown was, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that that's probably the worst we've played since the COVID season, and it's just an accumulative of all the things we spoke about already, and I don't know where we go from today, because if it's just about picking up the fact that we made so many mistakes, great, that's fine for me, but there's a lot more questions than there is answers coming from today, because I don't think today's performance wasn't not coming, because anybody that watched the Ross County game or Aberdeen game will tell you that on other days we wouldn't have won the matches.
Yeah, and Rodgers was asked in his post-match press conference, he was asked about how difficult Rugby Park is. Now, before we get into the pitch, I think we do have to give a lot of credit to Kilmarnock, because we saw them against Rangers, we've seen them, you mentioned obviously they went to Tynecastle and did well. They're a side who are tremendously motivated this season. They're a side who always make it difficult, and I think conceding a goal, you're obviously making it a lot more harder, but I think that's a Kilmarnock team that deserve a lot of credit for today.
I think that'll be missed in the wash, how good they performed. You know, sometimes when Celtic or Rangers drop points or lose a match in the cup, the concentration does go onto Celtic or Rangers, and the performance by the other team gets missed. And I feel like if you're being honest with yourself, you would have to say Kilmarnock played the game plan and they played it perfectly. And I just don't think it was the case of Kilmarnock sitting back. They took the game to Celtic today.
Mm-hmm.
It was easy for them just to sit there and be passive, let Celtic play left to right all day. But when the moments came, they pushed Celtic and they took Celtic's press right back to their own 6-yard line. And one of the themes that I've noticed this season with Celtic is they're inviting that press as far back as possible.
Yeah.
And we'll speak about recruitment, but the worrying thing for me is if we're getting pushed back so much by teams like Kilmarnock, what's the better teams in the league going to do? Is because I found there was times where the only option was a long ball.
Yeah.
And if you're hitting long balls into teams like Rangers who are 6'9", and they're going to swallow him up all day long. And the idea that they can just pick pockets of space and use a long ball. Sometimes Rodgers does a lot of mansplaining when he's explaining his tactics, like, oh, there's 3 or 4 different varieties of the press. We'll hit it long sometimes. It's up to the players to choose what the day long or whatever. I don't think we want to hear that as Celtic fans. I think we would just rather see the solutions on the park, and we're not seeing them now.
He was asked about the pitch being a factor, and he said the pitch was a factor. He said they asked what made Robbie Park a difficult venue to go to, and he said the pitch and nothing else. As a team, you're looking to move the ball quickly, and when you're playing against an opponent that's organised, fat, strong, and can run, you need the ball to be able to move fast, and it wasn't for us today. I am the first person to say that these plastic pitches are a shambles, but the days for using them as an excuse are done. We know what it is. We know what they're up. What Brendan Rodgers knows what he's up against. You can't use the pitch as an excuse, because a team like Celtic, as you say, they were resorting to long ball. Were they resorting to the long ball because they couldn't move the ball quick? We know the pitch isn't watered. We know it's a slow process to build up play, to use build up play in that park. But that's nothing new. I just think I think it's a lazy excuse. I do.
I think it's the go-to excuse for any team that gets beat at Livingston or Kilmarnock. And
I would agree.
do you know what? It can't be like a leveler for every team that plays it, because these teams, they lose matches. Celtic scored 5 against them last year at Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. You know what I mean? And another 4 or 5 in our cup match as well. So it's not like these players can't perform there. These players have been there before and proved they can perform there. The pace of the pitch doesn't explain why we were taking 10, 20, 30 seconds to take every free kick.
Yeah.
That was
noticeable.
We were waiting a minute and a half to take a corner kick while we were passing the ball backward at every occasion. I mean, if you are trying to force the issue, you play the ball as forward as much as possible and as fast as possible. To me, it was like the pitch just played into Celtic style of play, because Kilmarnock didn't have to move the ball fast forward. When they were going forward, they were zitting the ball. I mean, there was times where Greg Taylor had a hard day, and Greg Taylor will have a long sleep tonight. And there was moments in that match where Greg Taylor was struggling to keep up with the ball, and that doesn't marry up with comments that the pitch was too hard to play on or too slow or whatever. I think it's like the go-to excuse, and because it's the go-to excuse, it gets credence by every other manager using the same rubbish. When the fact of the matter is, Kilmarnock players are probably on less money than most players in the league. They train there because they can't afford training facilities, but the pitch is what it is. Celtic have got players on 20 grand a week playing internationals. The pace of the ball should be dictated by Celtic, not dictated by the surface, because both teams play in that surface. Celtic has got a lush bowling green, and we've seen the same tactics at Celtic Park against Ross County, long balls over the top. The second half was a little bit long balls over the top, and so I don't think it's easy to use that excuse, but I think it's very convenient. I think the manager knows himself that that'll be used by a certain section of support as a reason why we might have lost today.
Let's get into recruitment. Obviously, it was something Brendan Rodgers was very vocal about. He said that they were lacking quality. Personally, I see obviously losing Jota. You've got Hatate injured. That's the one thing with that Celtic squad over the past, I would say maybe 12, 18 months, is squad depth. if Celtic were struggling, there was a potential to bring on talent. You had a Bada coming off the bench. Times you had Maeda. There are injuries, but that is something now. You look at the bench today, and it's probably. I know we spoke about it a bit last season as well in terms of Celtic's bench towards the end of the season. Obviously, the league was won, but the bench today looked a little bit bare.
That was the first thing I noticed. The first thing I did when I seen that team sheet was look at the bench. I actually posted a picture of it to my brothers and a wee family chat we've got, and I just says, looking at that bench, it didn't give you much imagination that Celtic were going to change things up. I mean, you look at the bench and you say, like, who's going to come on and make a change if we're struggling here? And you get guys like Bernabe, guys like Forrest, Turnbull, Haksabanovic, who's got 2 legs out the door. And then you go, Yang was the only one that gives you any hope.
That was the one that said Yang's the only impact player.
And he was the only one that gave you an impact. Although Haksabanovic did come on, and I think he's playing his career out. He's playing his last couple of games at Celtic. I think he's maybe one that Rodgers might try and shift.
Do you think he's a player that Rodgers doesn't fancy, or do you think he's got his eye on a move away? Because we did see in stages last season he's capable of some. He is a player who's capable of a lot, but I just don't get the feeling he's not going to. I don't think he's going to be. That's an opportunity for. I mean, Abada's taking his opportunity to a degree, but with Jota been gone and no replacement in yet, but that is a big opportunity for Haksabanovic, and he's just not there in terms of, like, I don't think he's a player who's going to start. So essentially, where do you go? Where do you go with him?
Well, you need somebody in that Tom Rogic role. Somebody who's going to be that middleman, as I said earlier on, who's going to link up the midfield to bring in your wingers and bring in your strikers. He can do that. We saw it last season. He's got the ability to do that. He's got the ability to score goals himself. He got a couple of goals last season at key moments for Celtic, and something's happened. I don't know if it's his attitude or whether it's a drop in confidence. But when I look at Brendan Rodgers, I think he's bringing him on kind of like last resort sort of stuff. I don't think he sees him as somebody who's going to be playing 15, 20 games from starting 11 for Celtic. And it's a pity because there were stages last season that I thought this guy is going to be a player for Celtic.
Yeah.
I mean,
remember the goal? Was it against Hearts? Was it against Hearts?
Sorry?
Was it the one against Hearts?
There was one that kind of stroked into the corner of the net from an angle, and I thought it reminded me. It's quite a lazy comparison, but it reminded me a wee bit of El Yunusi, somebody who could thrill you and frustrate you in the same week, you know. And if we can get the best out of Haksabanovic, by all means, he will be a player for Celtic moving forward under Rodgers. But I don't know if he's the type of player that Rodgers is going to get a lot of game time to, and it's disappointing because I do think there's a player there. And the frustrating thing again is there's guys who offer you very little other than hard work, like Maeda. Like Maeda, he offers you most weeks. He offers you nothing but hard work. But I think hard work should be the bare minimum you get for a Celtic player.
You mentioned a wee while ago that you've got 4 positions where Celtic need to strengthen. I'm going to give you the floor. Where and why? What's the 4 positions?
Goalkeeper, I think Joe Hart's been a brilliant servant for Celtic. You look at his first season, I sit in the Jock Stein stand, so I've got a good vantage point. I can see him talking to the players constantly, talking to Ange at the time. He's a second captain on the park, but he's I think his time's come. I think this playing it for the back stuff, he's been able, but and there's also been moments like Ibrox last year when the tide turned when he messed a bit with the ball and let Rangers back in again, and Rangers scored no long after that. I think that was Joe Hart. So really, somebody who can be a keeper, a presence at crosses, a presence at corner kicks, somebody who's a bit more commanding rather than somebody who's letting Carter Vickers and Starfelt, as it was, just take control of the 6-yard box. You're the keeper, you should be taking charge of the 6-yard box. I don't think he does that enough. He's shot stopping, he's actually pretty good at. He's still got that in him. Yeah. I think in Europe as well, he's somebody that he's self-motivated and he can do a really good job. So that's my first position that I would change, and that's the reasons why.
What do you think with a goalkeeper though? Obviously, like, but something we spoke about the past couple of weeks when the kind of goalkeeper chat was mentioned. Do you think because of the Barkas signing, Celtic obviously was a lot of money, it was an outlay, a massive outlay that was welcomed at the time, but obviously didn't work out. Do you think that is something that is a worry? in terms of like it's going to be to buy a top goalkeeper. It's not cheap, and Hearts been serviceable, but Champions League something I want to touch on at the end, but I think you do need an upgrade in terms of that level. I think we saw last season in terms of playing with the ball at his feet. I think Celtic need an upgrade.
I think there's been games this season that he's caused Celtic corner kicks in the first minute of the match. You know what I mean? He did that twice already if you include pre-season, and we can't afford to begin aggressive teams like Rangers and big teams like Hearts early corner kicks for no reason whatsoever. And I think when you bring pressure on yourself, you're asking for trouble. And Joe Hart does that at times. I don't think he's quick enough. And then sometimes when he should be slower, he's too quick to make a decision. I think it's just indecisiveness. It's just creeped into his game a lot more. His first season was outstanding. Last season, I thought 7 out of 10, but it should be a last as a starter. I think he's got to be moved on, or at least I think Celtic avoided about spending money again because we spent money bad on Barkas. Then that's the wrong model.
Yeah.
I don't think Celtic as a club should strategise their next pool of players worried about the last mistakes they've made, because that should only be in place if you're always got the same wealth of players. It should be a big, massive landscape for Celtic to go into, and there's money there to spend it. Spending £3-4 million on a keeper, or £5 million on a keeper, should be priority for Celtic, because Celtic have got a defence, I think, that takes care of itself once Johnson's back, once Carter Vickers is back. But goalkeeping is still an issue for Celtic, and it's key. If you wanted to progress in Europe or win championships, you need a strong back four and keeper. And I don't think we've got that just now, and the keeper's one that I think needs upgraded instantly, as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think I'll be surprised if that's not. Obviously, a Jota replacement's big. I want to talk about rumours in a minute, but that is a massive position. Now, we've seen that today. That position needs filled.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think one of my positions that I think needs filled is left wing. I mean, Dyson Maeda, okay for the bench, you know what I mean? Especially when you're looking to close a game down, and somebody who has work rate and pace, he'll kill off defences and kill off teams, especially in Europe as well, where he might even start games. I think he's maybe that ball over the top when you're playing counter-attack. He's an asset, but we need somebody who's going to create. Yang might be the option, might be the answer, but we need somebody that boy Daniel Podence for Wolves. I've seen a lot of his clips, and that's the only sample size I've got is a couple of minutes clips there. I mean, he looks really exciting. And do you know, Celtic have always been identical with having a certain type of player, somebody who thrills and skills and thrills with their skills, but is also getting an end product. And Celtic need that right now. Jota had that. Jota had that in abundance. He wasn't just a bag of tricks. He was somebody who did things with purpose. And this Podence guy, he ticks that box for me on paper at least. If you're not going to be Yang, fine. Keep Yang as somebody you're going to give 20, 30 games, minutes to each match. Build them up for next season. Build them up for the future. But we need somebody who's going to come in and be a number one left winger, because you can't have somebody as in their shell as Greg Taylor, and then somebody who's as erratic as Maeda on the one side of the pitch, because you're totally taking away one side of the pitch when you're doing that. And when you're coupling it up with Abada's inability to take a man on, you're just asking for trouble. And Podence, I think, is the one you might have been hinting at. I think he, for me, would be a priority. If it's £10 million, pay it. We've got the money. It's not for me and you to worry about how much it costs. We've got the money. Just buy him. And if he's going to improve his starting 11, there's no complaints for me.
Yeah. Other two positions, I would imagine, left back, I think, is a priority, and I think striker.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And I think today showcased why we need a striker so much, because there was a moment in the first maybe 20 minutes where Kyogo, he went down. He was kind of struggling a wee bit for a couple of minutes. I don't know if he picked up on it. It was the camera was going to him, and he was kind of like leaning over. He was looking a bit tight, and I thought, we lose him before these fixtures coming up, and we are in big trouble. You know what I mean? And we need somebody with a more of an ilk than or more of an ilk than this guy for Brøndby, this under-21 player. If we don't have somebody coming in who's scored 20 goals at a certain level over the course of 1 or 2 seasons, then you're
like a Giakoumakis.
Like a Giakoumakis. That was my biggest. On my own pod, I spoke week in, week out about my my reassurance I had in my head that Giakoumakis could score 30 goals for Celtic every season if he was given the game time. The guy's goals to games ratio was unreal. He didn't score against Rangers, but if you watch the games he played against Rangers, he tore them to shreds.
I would agree.
He allowed Jota to run mad. He allowed Abada to ghost in. He allowed guys like McGregor to push forward, attack, to take his space because he was occupying their centre backs. If you occupy their centre backs, they can't go forward. They can't create angles for guys like Tavernier and Barisic and all the rest of it. He was providing a lot of dirty work for Celtic, and he also scored goals as well. And I think we're missing that. I don't think O reminds me a bit like Bio, very raw.
Yeah,
there's something there, but he's just very raw. And I wasn't impressed this morning when I read the stuff about this boy for Brøndby. We've got to do better than that, Scott, because
Matthias Kvistgaard, I think his name is.
Oh, you've done well pronouncing that. Everything got to try that name there. That is really impressive. You've done well there. We've got to do better than that because this is the signings we made under Ronnie Dyler when there was no vision, when it was just short-termism. We've got a lot of money sitting. We've got a manager who I think is building for 2-3 years.
And the thing that gets me is with Rodgers, we've seen him in the past when he didn't get targets. He was talking about Terminado. You've brought him back to the club, I would imagine, with the assurances he's going to get well back. Now, he has had money to spend. He's brought in 2 defenders for decent fees, but we're still waiting on that big signing. We're still waiting on, as you say, the kind of big bracket signings. And I want to get into maybe a goalkeeper in a minute who there's been wee chat about in terms of like rumours. There's nothing really serious in it, but when you look at it on paper, it makes a lot of sense. But I think in terms of the way Rodgers has always had that feeling, he was well backed at Leicester in terms of signings. It has to be the same here. He has to get money to spend, and
you get a frustrated figure already. Sad, didn't he?
Yeah.
It looked post-match. I also saw a 3-minute interview on Viaplay, and to me, it looked a bit. Really, the results obviously got into him, but see, when it looked to me like he feels like, I don't know, it looked like he's a bit down the dumps about Celtic's positioning with the squad. He was. I would
be if I was in the Celtic board, I would be jumping over hoops to make sure he doesn't feel that way again, because he was talking about being I can't refer to the phrase Terminado. He said that a lot in his first spell. So why, if you bring him back, you need to make sure he's not in that position again. Now, I'm not saying you spend 50, 60 million and keep him happy, but you have to.
There's got to be a compromise. I think it's been made pretty obvious, and it's been out in the open now that this is a Dermot Desmond production.
Yes.
I think the board were wanting to go down the Enzo Maresca route.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the board wanted to go back to it, and I think a big part of that was Peter Lawwell and Rodgers' relationship broke down towards the very end. And there's maybe a bit of credence behind that, where you go, right, let's not go backwards. But these are the same guys who hired Lennon again, who tried to bring in Gordon Strachan again, offered Martin O'Neill the job seemingly on a short gap basis. So this board will go back that way if given a moment's notice. But I just feel like so I think this has been a Dermot Desmond production. So he's the one who's overruled the full board and says, I can get this man, we can afford his wages, let's go for it. He's come in, but the same stumbling blocks are there that we've had before. You remember guys like Toljan coming in, Shved coming in,
John McGinn.
John McGinn.
The one at Newcastle was it Fabian Schär? I remember that. Castagna, who went wrong. There's players like that. There's a few. The links the past few days, and I want to get your thoughts on these before we wrap up. I've seen links for Kieran Tierney. I obviously get it because of the Rodgers connection and the Celtic connection, but if Celtic go for Kieran, I wouldn't understand Celtic going for Kieran Tierney, because we know the reason he's not playing at Arsenal is because he's injured. So is he the long-term option?
Well, I did read that that Tierney came out and said that he was available all last season without injury. And I was surprised at that because the vibe I was getting was he wasn't getting
That's what I thought as well.
up to speed with the players. So I was surprised to hear him say that. Maybe that's him telling suitors out there that, look, I'm no the sick note that you think I'm on. I'm fit enough to play. And you know, I've changed my mind because I did say I want to see Greg Taylor get a season under Rodgers, and I don't want to start his progression. But I'm at the stage now where I don't think Greg Taylor's going to make it under Rodgers.
Right.
That's just maybe I'm a bit too harsh, but it's just my opinion. I think if we can get Tierney for one season, we take him because I think it's a position we need to badly improve on, and then we can spend the season trying to find a replacement. Or Celtic make surprises, and because don't forget we've got a sell-on clause with Kieran Tierney, so that knocks money off the figure being asked. So if if the figure being asked is X, and Celtic are getting just say 20% of that or 15% of that, any deal we can do with them would be without that figure. So that maximises Arsenal's sort of the profit back, money back as such. You know what I mean? If they sell to Newcastle for maybe 30 million, they might lose, I don't know, 8 or something, whatever it could be. So Celtic have got I don't think it's going to happen, Scott. I'm not going to lie. I did read this morning that the two options that Tierney's got is to stay at Arsenal or go to Celtic. That's the two options he's got left because Newcastle have since moved on.
They decided Livramento for Southampton.
And there's a lot of money I think they spent on him. So
yeah.
And I think I'm a romantic at heart. I think if you get Kieran Tierney back, and do you know what? If there's a guy that can play that role that he's been asked of, I've got a sneaky suspicion. I don't know if you've thought about this. I think we're going to go to a back three with two fullbacks.
I certainly think it would make sense. I mean,
because you don't bring in the Lager Bielke at £3 million. Is he going to be come in to be a backup for Nabrowski? I'm not sure about that. The profile of Lager Bielke is he's very good at those long balls, and we've seen so far. We've discussed it. That seems to be a theme under Rodgers this time. So he's been brought in with a direct purpose to be involved and get a lot of game time.
Mm-hmm.
So a back three might not be as crazy as what it seems just now. And if you've got a Kieran Tierney and a Arthur Johnson, then that opens up the possibility to play the back three. The worry there is, who's your backup for them? Is it going to be Stephen Welsh? Are we going to have the horror show that is Kobayashi? That's the only thing, because I did read Rodgers saying that he wants 4 centre-backs. Right? We all know the 4's Welsh and then the 3 we just mentioned. So that, as a wee fly in that ointment in the back three, but a back three I don't think is out of the question. Because I think it gives you a bit of solidity, but it also allows that kind of Christopher Ayer type run from defence. That midfield split and run that players just back off and don't want to commit. Yeah. And it gives you the cover of the 2 centre-backs, and it allows McGregor to still stay forward without having to cover his left back. You know what I mean? And I think that might be something that we see. We've not saw it yet, but I don't think we've had a full defence fit yet to allow Rodgers to do that. And see if that's been the case. For me, that's reassuring, because this can't be Rodgers' style of play. Surely it's not just a team problem, because this system looks awful. Mm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a final thing I want to say about, obviously, there was talk today of Patrick Roberts coming back. There's no chance of that. Patrick Roberts will not. If Patrick Roberts comes back, I'll be astonished, because he has dropped a level, but I don't think he's the answer in terms of. I think he would be that. I think obviously he's got the background in terms of what he did the first time, but he hasn't kicked on the way you thought. And very rarely does that work, a player coming back who's not moved on. Tierney's different, because Tierney's obviously went to a side like Arsenal when he's been playing has shown a lot, but Patrick Roberts is not the answer. He's not. I wouldn't think. I would be astonished if he becomes a Celtic player again.
I think that ship sailed. I think he'll be remembered for being a good Celtic player. I think if you spoke about him in 10 years' time, you would say like he was a good servant for the club and played well, and one that maybe got away, but you don't go back that way. I think Kieran Tierney, he's went to an elite level, an elite club, He's performed at an elite standard. Roberts has went to Spain, didn't get a game. He went to the Championship, I think, or League One when the Sure ended up at Sunderland. I don't think you perform well at a club at Celtic when you drop those levels and then go back up the way again. When he was at Man City as a youth player on loan, he's got a lot to prove. You know what I mean? He's trying to get himself out there. He's trying to impress a new club, maybe get himself a contract. I think when you're getting to your mid 20s and you've got to a level where Southampton's probably your stagnation, that's probably where you're going to teeter at. I think the guy just fitted into Celtic's philosophy at that time. Wee short guy, just chink in and out of the defences, and to me, he was a good servant for the club. But I don't think he's going to improve Celtic's team now. I think if he was on in the squad today, I think he would have played ahead of Abada. But that's not a good thing because I don't think Abada's Celtic level either. Long term, I think he's the guy that's come in, showed well at times, got great stats, but he's probably not the Celtic player that I think that he might have been had things been different.
One final wee thing. Now, this is just me looking into things and maybe putting 2 and 2 together, making 5. But there's some interesting comments regarding Liverpool goalkeeper Calvin Keller, who is a Republic of Ireland goalkeeper who is potentially wanting to leave on loan. He would be a difference maker. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. It might not even be realistic, but that's the sort of goalkeeper who Celtic could look at for a season, because Celtic have done it well in the past with Foster, and it's not out the realms of possibility that that's the road Celtic could go down. He's a player who would be a big difference maker.
Well, this is the thing, you know, there's certain players in positions that I think if they pop up and they're short term, you still go for them. Same as Kieran Tierney. If it's one season, but you take that hit because they're going to improve the team, okay, it's not a very good idea to do all over the park because you have to have a long-term goal. But I think if you can bring in somebody who's going to make the team play much better, you know, exactly, get it to the next level as such, you take that opportunity, and then if you can't persuade that guy to stay for another season or buy him, you can use that time to scout somebody of a similar standard. And Celtic should have names lined up for the positions. The thing that worries me is players like that are not on the list because they'll know exactly who's going to move on, who's not going to move on. Because football is a small world. They all talk. They know who's going for a move, who's changing agents, who's speaking, who's not speaking, what's broke down, etc. And my worry is Celtic are outside that bubble because I've not seen anything to suggest that Celtic are talking to players and Celtic don't always do their business quietly. There's been many windows that we've sat for 2 weeks saying they'll be signing this guy, and then eventually they come. So we don't always do our work quietly. The ones we do quietly are the ones that have come in for the Far East, their Kyogos, etc. Because nobody spoke to anybody. It's been one phone call. They've dealt with an agent who's been happy to let their player come there, and a club who's happy to see their player progress. And it's done dusted in 2 days. Celtic are doing a market where if you want the better players and that'll start 11, there's going to be a lot of negotiations. That gets out in the open. Agents talk to reporters, try and get their players' name out there a bit more. Celtic's talk to this player. Oh, why does Celtic want him? He must be of a good standard. He must be open to a move. And I never saw any of that. And my worry is that Celtic are in that ocean yet, and they're again looking small time. And if I see Dodo Dan's name getting mentioned in the next couple of days, I'm going to start worrying because I just think that black book at Celtic Park has only got 3 or 4 names on it, and the concern we've all got, including you, Scott, I'd imagine, is that we start running out of days and we start phoning all phone numbers again, and we don't want guys from Maccabi Haifa and guys on loan to Man City's D team. We just don't need that. We need players that's going to. If we sign any more players this window that are project players, and I think we can all say the confidence that the Celtic board are on the plan and taking this club forward the way we were all told at the start of the season when we signed up to a season ticket campaign with the slogan "We're all in," because that just looks like a mute statement now.
Yeah, and I certainly think today's result is going to accelerate the transfer talk over the next 11 days. and it's probably a good time to wrap up the show, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. Thank you very much for coming on.
I've enjoyed it, mate. Anytime you want me on, it's a pleasure.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone tuned in. Please follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. We'll see you all soon. Cheers.